Let us discuss what modules are and how to use the import and export keywords. What is a module? A module is a JavaScript file that exports one or more values using the export keyword. Now these exported values can be objects, functions, or variables. We have two keywords here which are important, import and export, and both of them work together. They work together in the sense that we can only import something that is being exported. Let us quickly take a look at an example. We have app.js and index.js within this src folder, and in app.js file we have a function called app, and at the bottom we are exporting this particular function called app using the curly braces. And in index.js file we have an import statement where we are importing this app function from the app.js file. It is important to note that this export statement is necessary for this import statement to work. So we have an export statement and a corresponding import statement here. One important point to remember is all import statements in a module should be at the top of the file. Let us talk about one more point regarding the import statement. At the end, the string over here actually is the relative path to the file. So the string dot slash app is the relative path to app.js from index.js. Also, please remember that the file extension for app.js, the .js extension is optional. So dot slash app will work and dot slash app.js also will work. If you're not familiar with what relative path means, relative path refers to a location that is relative to the current directory. Relative path uses two special symbols, a dot which corresponds to the current directory and a double dot which corresponds to the parent directory. Let us discuss a few more ways in which we can use our import and export statements. Suppose we have a file called helpers.js in which we have some functions f1, f2, f3 and f4. And let's suppose that in app.js, in the function app, I want to call f1, f2 and f3 like this. As the code now stands, this will not be possible because f1, f2 and f3 are defined in another file. For f1, f2 and f3 to be accessible in app.js, first in helpers.js we have to export them. So let's do that. So we can write export and use a curly braces and we'll export f1, f2 and f3. Now in app.js we can import f1, f2 and f3 using the import statement. Import and again curly braces f1, f2, f3 from, and then we have to specify the relative path as a string. The helpers.js file is in the same directory as the app.js file. So all we have to do is specify the current directory slash, and VS Code will display the files that are in the current directory, and we see helpers over here. So select that and close the string, and now f1, f2 and f3 will be accessible within app.js. Let us talk about one important variation in how we can do export. If a file has multiple functions or members, we can designate one of them as the default function. Let's designate f1 as the default export member. So we can say export default f1, and notice that we should not use the curly braces when we specify the default member. And let me remove f1 from here. Now we are exporting a default member called f1, and we are exporting a couple of non-default members called f2 and f3. When we import a default member, again we should not use curly braces, so let me take that out. So now I'm going to place f1 outside the curly braces, and now we have the correct import statement corresponding to the export statements here. Let's examine them once again. So we have one default member called f1, and we have a couple of non-default members or named members called f2 and f3, and non-default members are enclosed within curly braces, while the default member is not enclosed within curly braces, but we use the default keyword for that. And in the import statement, we specify the default member without curly braces and the non-default members within curly braces. There is one more variation in how we can specify the export statement. Instead of specifying the export statements separately, we can specify them right at the function definition itself. So if we want to make F1 the default member, we can say export default function F1, and we can say export function F2 and export function F3. And now again we have one default member which is F1 and two non-default members which are F2 and F3. The import statements syntax will remain the same. Now let us discuss one variation in which we can write our import statements. When we import functions from another file, we can import them and then use them using different names. For example, I want to use the function name main instead of F1. When we specify a member without the curly braces, it will mean that we are referencing the default member of the helpers.js file. The name does not have to be the same. So we have F1 as the name of the default member within helpers.js, but we can use a totally different name over here. Similarly, for non-default members, we can specify different names, but we have to use the as keyword. Let's say we want to use func2 instead of F2. Then we just write F2 as func2, and then we can use func2 to reference F2 over here. There is one important variation of the import statement when it comes to external packages. If you observe the statement here, import React from React within single quotes, you can see that this is not a relative file path like this over here where we say ./app. This React is actually the name of the package under dependencies in package.json. When we want to import something from a package that is a dependency in package.json, we need to just specify the name of the package over here. Similarly, for React DOM, we say import React DOM from React-DOM because React-DOM is the name of the package. So these are some different ways in which we can use our import and export statements.